Car's back in the shop, back on the lift. We have some things to get done for the off season, and this is the beginning of the prep for 2023. I plan on running the Spec-D Series. As you guys saw, I went and ran the shootout last summer up at Missions Raceway, and they are doing a full licensing series, 3 events, June, July, and August. Licensing series, and in the middle of the series, the second round is going to be a shootout event. If you win, you get a license straight up. So that's what we're planning on doing. We're going to be doing some traveling. There's a couple things that I want to change for next season, but not a whole lot. I've only been driving the car for a little bit. I was actually looking back at some memories on my phone, and we finished this car about 6 months ago, which is crazy to think because I feel like I've had the car for like a couple years now just because of how long it took to build. And yeah, so I haven't been driving it that much, obviously. So I don't want to change a ton of things, but there's a couple important and key things that we need to make this car more competitive. Before the last event last year, we put on a new prototype angle kit that came from FDF, and we are hoping to get some more parts from them, as there's going to be a new knuckle that's going to go with these arms and a few other things that I've been talking to Josiah about. And hopefully that all comes to before the season and we're able to get those things dialed in. I know he's super busy as well. Other than that, our biggest thing we need to do is work on the rear suspension. The gearing in the car that we put in is really good for the 5/8. The car was a missile with a 430 gear in it. But now when we go to other tracks, we have issues with the gearing and having to adjust the suspension in the car for the gearing to try and compensate. And it was kind of a battle. So with that being said, the thing that I am going to be working on is fitting in a Cobra IRS rear end with a winner's quick change. And I have my subframe sandblasted, ready to go to be prepped and modified. And here I have my winner's quick change. The quick change took a lot longer for me to get. I was hoping to have it here at the beginning of the year, but I was working with John Vick, and he was trying to help me, source one. He was trying to work his end on getting some things figured out. And I really thank you, John. I really appreciate you doing all that. That was super awesome. And how it ended up working out was we were able to get one through Rad Dan, but it was going to be another 6 to 10 weeks till I could get my hands on one. So what we ended up doing is they had a winner's quick change, and this is the 10 bolt version and not the 6 bolt version. And the only difference really is there's a few more vent ports and there's only 6 bolts on the diff cover. For us, that's not a huge deal because when we're changing gears, we're really not worried about doing it in a 5-minute comp timeout or doing it necessarily as quickly as possible. So yeah, it would be nice to only have the 6 bolts, and they're a little bit different profile to them. But this is what we got. This is what I was able to get in a timely manner, and I'm not too worried about it. It's going to be all the same. All the internals are the same and everything. So what we ended up doing is I paid them for the diff that they had, and they're ordering a new one for them. So they'll be able to get one, and they're not worried about having it anytime soon. So thank you, Vic's Brothers Racing. We'll go ahead and put their Instagram up there. Make sure you guys go check them out. They do a lot of really cool stuff, cage work. They do Lucky Dog Racing. They're drifting. They're out helping pro drifters like Travis Reeder. Those guys are awesome. So thank you. And specifically to Jalen, it was his diff. was his baby that he sold to me and was willing to do. So appreciate you guys very much. And yeah, so the whole process of doing this, I'm going to be figuring it out as I go. I have kind of a general plan of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, but this has not been done in a lot of cars. There's one other New Edge Mustang that some of you guys might know of, Doug Vanderbrink. He built one of these for Formula Drift back in 2017, 2018, I think is what it was. He might have competed all the way up to 2019. But I've been talking to him, getting some information on how he modified the subframe for his winners and what process he went through to try and get it installed. And actually, I don't think his was winners. I think his was a Tiger's quick change. But with very little information, as we're doing this, it's going to be a huge learning process. I kind of have some of the steps planned out. So the biggest thing is obviously we're going to have to take the rear end out of the car. We're going to want to put the subframe into the car and check things out, look at clearances, and I'm hoping I'll be able to look at it in the car, and I might be able to get most of the mock mounting places in. But ultimately what I plan to do is I'm going to build a jig for the subframe, because when I pull it back out of the car and I want to make my cuts, I don't want the mounting points moving. I don't know what stress is on this. I don't know if there's any, I don't know anything about it. So I want to make sure all the mounting points remain in the same spot as I start cutting material, because right here, this section is going to be the biggest one that we're going to have to take out for the diff cover. So basically, we'll build a jig. All the mounting points will remain the same, and I'll be able to do all my TIG and welding here on the bench on this subframe. The only thing is we don't know the pinion angle. With the way that this transmission is in the car, we did it with the solid rear axle, and we got to make sure that the pinion angle is perfect on this, and I don't want to have to redo it or mess with it or have any issues down the road. The reason we're doing this right now is I have to order axles. I have just about everything else for the IRS, and you guys will see some more of that later. But I got to get axles ordered, and those are another 6 to 10 weeks, and we need to be testing the car by May. That's just how it works. You can try and be as ahead as possible, but when you work a full-time job, you're doing other projects, you got other things going on. You know, I'm not able to devote 8 hours a day just to what I'm doing here. So, with that being said, I think the first thing I'm going to work on is building the jig for this guy. I have some steel that I'm going to use. I'll be able to cut it up, get it laid out, and go from there. Don't want to talk too much about this. I want to get to work, but I also want to give a lot of people information about what I'm doing, because there's not a lot of it out there for these cars. Not a lot of people do it. But I think, you know, some people like this. There's the whole debate, solid axle versus IRS. I get it. You know, you're adding way more components, more room for error, more room for failure. But ultimately, the most competitive cars are IRS setup. And you think about the BMWs, the 240s, they're all independent rear suspension. And the reason they're so competitive is the adjustability in the rear to get the grip dialed. We have zero adjustability in the rear. I mean, there's some things you can do to a solid axle to make it better, but I'm really excited to go for this. Do something different, something not a lot of people do. But yeah. So with that being said, I'm going to brainstorm some more ideas on how I'm going to start, because we literally just got the car in. I'm just starting this, and we'll get going, see what we get ourselves into. And we won't see the whole thing complete right away. I think there'll be a couple projects in between, because there is going to be that downtime of me waiting for axles. And yeah, quickly I'll show you a couple things that I worked on while we were working on the golf cart that I didn't include in any videos. one of those things is the water pump here. We relocated it. It's on the outside of my bracket now because we changed the routing of the water pump. It is now on the return side of the radiator because we think that was one of the issues we were having with keeping the car cool. It's not that we couldn't keep the car cool, but I wanted it to be better because I knew it could be better based off of how we built this. I started to work on mounts for windows. I kind of got my base idea here. Simple bracket here. Window will bolt in to riv nuts. You'll be able to pull the windows easy and the brackets will stay in. I need to make it out of some thicker material, but I'm not worried about that right now because we drive mostly in the summer with this car and we'll get there eventually working on that. And that's already about 15 minutes of talking, so let's get to work. So I got the frame made and I have my subframe up here with my super calibrated boards, but I've gotten basically everything square just off of a few measurements. Doesn't need to be perfect, but we want to get it close so that way when we make other measurements it's a lot easier. Basically got it in position now that I think is good. I believe the height is okay. We'll actually be able to fit the winders in there when it's on the jig. I hope. I'm gonna make my marks here where I mount a little bit taller just in case I need to lift it up. Then I can lift it up again, drill some new holes, and be able to fit the winders in. But yeah, so now I'm gonna make the mounts for each end. That's next. Alright, so I got the back mounts in. Looks good. Next thing I'm going to work on are the front mounts. And I'm hoping I have enough tube because it's going to be close. Yeah, it's going to be pretty close. I have some extra stuff. I think this stuff is 3-inch. And I think I used this on the back of my car, but it's kind of gnarly. It's a little aggressive, but I'm trying to remember. No, I used 2-inch on all my stuff. I made 2 layers. Yeah, 2 and 2 to make my back brace. But yeah, I mean, I think I have enough stuff around here that I can make it happen. Yeah, so basically what I did is I just tried to get these as square this way as possible, and then obviously lined up with this back brace. Turned out pretty good. Nice. I've literally never made any sort of jig before at all, and obviously I don't have like a welding table to be able to clamp stuff down, 100% correctly. So it's a little challenging at times. It'd be nice to have a way to really clamp stuff the way it's supposed to, but I think before I do these mounts, I'm going to add a brace just across here because, I mean, realistically, I don't think any of this is ever going to move because of the not really square tube, rectangle tube that I have is pretty strong, but I got an extra piece of square tube here. Sorry, Toast. Wake you up. just a little brace like this, like nothing crazy. Some of the stuff that we don't use, so I think I'll do that. I'm not going to use this big stuff. I might be able to use that later if I need to for this other mount, which hopefully I won't. But yep, gonna keep going. Just like that, jig is all done. So the only thing I might do is add the brace back there, but I think it's gonna be okay. I don't think it's gonna be too big of a deal. That tube's pretty strong. I don't see it flexing. So there it is. First step of the project. All done. Next thing's going to be trying to get this bad boy to fit in there. I just pulled it out and looked at it and eyeballed it, like the height and everything with the jig. And it looks like I'll have plenty of room to be able to actually do that stuff on the bench. So that's good. I'm excited about that. And if not, if I do need to raise it a little bit, that's why I built the jig with some extra space here, so I can, you know, lift the subframe up and re-drill these holes. Won't be as nice and easy because I won't be able to put it on the drill press, but that's no big deal. So yeah, there we are. Jig is complete. Time to chop, 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 chop. But I gotta decide if I want to put this. I need to put the subframe in first. I know for a fact there's a few things I need to do to even be able to like position the winners up there. And that's that. These guys gotta go. And I know this has to go, but if we're gonna put it up there, I don't want to do that yet because I don't know how far to build my tube. But yeah, this is pretty sweet. I mean, I'd be able to put all the suspension in and have it sitting here with the lowers and uppers and basically have it simulate my axle links and what all that's going to look like. So